Then the king will say to those on his right, "Come, you who are blessed by my Father, take your inheritance, the kingdom prepared for you since the creation of the world. For I was hungry, and you gave me something to eat. I was thirsty, and you gave me something to drink." Then the righteous will answer him, "Lord, when did we see you hungry and feed you, or thirsty and give you something to drink?" The king will reply, "Truly I tell you, whatever you did for one of the least of these brothers and sisters of mine, you did for me."
I'm the ministry coordinator for an organization called Love Ministries. We're a ministry that specializes in assisting the homeless in the downtown Atlanta area. Our mission is to reduce homelessness by reaching out, directing folks into areas where they can get the additional help that they need. We minister through food. We use food as a tool to address the problem of homelessness in the city of Atlanta. There's a stereotype when you hear the term homeless that it's a bum who's lazy or strung out on drugs, or there's a problem with alcoholism. Some of those things are true, but the problem is much larger than that. There are people on the streets who look much like you and I, who've ended up there due to perhaps a bad decision, or perhaps by no doing of their own. There are children on the streets of Atlanta who are homeless. What did they do to become homeless? However they got there, there's a way that we can get them off the street. For many of these people, they have lost hope. They've given up. Many are just seeking a hand up, not a handout.
I was going into my senior year at Morehouse College. That summer, fell into some really hard times. I lost 2 jobs in a matter of 3 months. And coming here from Baltimore, I had no family. Most of the friends that I'd had throughout college had either gone back home or had dropped out. And it was the summer of 2006 where I received that notice on my apartment door that said eviction. The only things that I kept with me were my clothing and my library of books. So I slept outside of the back of my 1998 Chevy Blazer for almost a year. Wherever I could find a parking spot, I would sleep inside of the parking lot on college, on the actual campus. And people always ask, well, how did you do it? How did you survive? Well, I was a little smart. I was a little smart because I would sleep inside of the parking deck, but then the mornings right before class, I would sneak inside the dorms in order to take my showers. One moment during my own personal homeless experience that I will never forget, because I was sleeping inside of the parking lot, I had blown my engine out in my car. And my car was actually inside of the shop for about a week. So I did not have transportation for a couple of days. And I remember leaving it used to be a Blockbuster on Peachtree Road. And I walked up to a 24-hour restaurant, got a tea and a dessert. And then afterwards, I just sat there. It was about 2, 3 o'clock in the morning. I just sat there. And then I had to go. I mean, of course, you can't stay there all night. And I remember walking out to the street on Peachtree, and I looked to my right and I looked to my left, and I realized I have absolutely nowhere to go. I have absolutely nowhere to sleep tonight. So I saw a bus stop right across the street. And again, it had to have been 2, 3 o'clock in the morning. And I will never forget that last bus that drove by and asked, was I going anywhere? And all I could say was no. And I slept there on that bus stop that night. And the next morning, I got up and I went into the restaurant across the street. I washed my face, I brushed my teeth, and I went to work the next day. It was a very trying time. It was a very trying time. But one thing that I realized inside of that experience is there are so many people who are literally a paycheck away or an experience away or a trauma away or situation away from homelessness. And it's only grace, it's only mercy, I can only consider it God's love that many people aren't homeless. I felt obligated, and I felt a call inside of my life, and I said, I've got to give back, because this used to be me. Bobby and I actually met through a mutual friend, through my pastor, Dr. Flippin. And when I called Bobby, he said, you want to come down and work? You want to come down and do something? He said, well, I have a Friday for you. I said, what do you mean you have a Friday for me? He said, if you and your organization want to come down, I have a Friday that you all can volunteer. Well, at the time, the organization was just me. I didn't have any volunteers, didn't have any money, didn't have a budget, but I said yes. And to be honest, I was actually praying for another way or another additive to our Friday nights, because right now all we do is feed. All we do is feed, but there are so many other needs that the homeless have. They need clothing, they need hygiene products, they need socks, they need blankets. So when my fraternity, Alpha Phi Alpha, came and said that we want to do some more service, I said, great.
One of our mottos is, first of all, servants of all, we shall transcend all. And at the center of that is servants of all. So it's at the absolute core of what we do, and it always has been for more than a century. I was raised 10 minutes from where we were giving out supplies and foods and dinner and stuff. So in a way, it's kind of an extension of the neighborhood where I was raised. But I think what kind of shocks, especially people that have not done that before, is that you have an image of what homeless people are and how they sound and what they say and how they speak, and it just gets completely blown out of the water. You will have someone who struggles with diction and grammar, and the next person they were just one paycheck put them on the streets. And so they are as articulate and smart and witty and funny as anybody you've ever met. And so their homelessness does not define who they are. It is their condition, and hopefully temporarily, but it's not who they are. It's where they are at that point in time. So I think getting a chance to do this on a regular basis it reminds all of us that almost everybody you know and everybody your parents knows somebody that is one check away or one paycheck away from being at those tables asking for socks.
Pretty much everybody who goes out there comes back impacted. I think to work with the folks that are out there, a lot of those folks were just like any of us. A lot of them had very good jobs. Some of them were engineers I've talked to out there. All kinds of different folks that have lost homes. Medical issues came up. I think it's impactful to realize this can happen to anybody. The folks down there are often kind of a forgotten group of people, and people pass them on the street and just ignore them, and a lot of scorn heaped their way. And so I think for us, it's just a little chance to bring some dignity and compassion to folks who sometimes don't get a lot of that.
It's something that makes a difference in somebody's life. Yeah, I want to make somebody else.
Yeah, because you know what? We all have our good times.
Hey, it ain't like it used to be in our day when we were growing up.
No.
People would help each other.
Yeah.
The faces that we see on a weekly basis, the stories that we hear on a weekly basis, people who have lost families, people who are educated, people who are doctors, people who used to be business owners and just fell on hard times. I realize and am continuing to realize that all homeless people aren't drug addicts. All homeless people aren't mentally challenged. All homeless people aren't fugitives or criminals. Some of them are ordinary people who are just trying to get back to a place where they were before. Last winter, I want to say her name was Eve, an older lady, had to be inside of her mid-50s. She came that week, and her story was extremely unique. She said that she not only had children, but also had grandchildren that she had to take care of. And she was looking for clothing for them. But again, all we really specialized as far as coming down there was food. So we didn't have anything. So the very following week, I made a promise. I said, I'm going to bring you some things. I'm going to call some folk up, and we're going to get you some clothes. She came back the next week, and that's one of the amazing things about the people that we meet, because you think that the misconception is that when a homeless person asks you for something, they really want something else. Like if they're asking you for money, they want to buy drugs. If they're asking you for bus fare, they want to go buy cigarettes. Or if they ask you for clothes, they want to sell them so they can go buy alcohol. But this woman came back, and she didn't even stand inside the food line, but she walked straight up to me and she said, "Now, you promised me." And most people, when they say they're going to do something for us, they don't do it. And I had her clothes, and I brought them to her, and she just cried. And I think inside of that moment, it made me realize, and it also made her realize, that there are people who have your genuine interest at heart. And everybody's not going to lie to you, because the same thoughts that I could have had about her, she probably had those same thoughts about me. And that's the interesting thing about our community, is that sometimes we can be so skeptical of one another, not understanding or realizing that people could be viewing us the exact same way. So she cried her eyes out when we gave her those clothes, because she honestly thought that we weren't coming back.
There's a guy that comes down nightly. He was there last night. He'd been homeless. Met him when I first came down, and he'd been homeless and trying to get a job, get back in the job market for a long, long time. And finally, he was able to gain employment, and we missed him for a couple of weeks. And I was wondering what happened to him. And he showed up one night, and he was very jubilant. He says, "I'm real sorry I hadn't been here to volunteer, but I've got good news." And he said, "I have changed my name. No longer call me my name. Call me Blessed." I said, "Why?" And then he began to tell me what happened. He gained employment. He was able to find a place to live. And that was well over a year and a half ago. He's working now, and he still comes down to volunteer. He didn't forget the helping hand that he received. He was never looking for a handout, just for an opportunity.
It reminds us that everyone's life has a story. Everyone has a story. And sometimes we can be so caught up in ours that we forget that people have, a meaningful story as well. That if you have kids and they have kids, they have the same issues that you have. They cry over them, they struggle over them. All of those things are the same thing. Everyone has a story.
Love that Jesus in you, so easy.
Come on with it now.
So easy.
Come on.
So easy. Easy to love. Easy to love.
I believe that love is contagious. And when you're showing it, not only does it get shown back to you, but the combination of so many people's love can make such a world of difference in many people's lives. There are people who look forward to us coming down there on Friday nights. Like if I miss a Friday, the very following Friday, they're asking, "Where were you last week?" Because they look forward to that light, to that smile, to that "you can make it," to that "bless you, have a good week." They look forward to that. So I believe that people are drawn and people are connected through love and through that common interest of just helping others. People know there's a need. They don't realize how much they're needed until they get involved, until they're actually given that invitation. I did a huge research project when I was doing my master's degree on the homeless. And one term that I used to describe the homeless was the invisible people. Because they're there, but many people don't want to see them. The amazing thing, and even here inside of Atlanta, is that the highest concentration of homeless people is literally blocks away from the courthouse, blocks away from City Hall, blocks away from where our congressmen and women meet. So it's not that these people aren't there, they've just become invisible to you.
There's a ton of scriptures that talk about how we care for the poor. In fact, I would say that's one of the resonating things in Scripture, Old and New Testament both. It's all over Scripture. I think because the way we see people is so important. And I think one of the things for me is that these are folks that nobody even sees. They walk by them so often and never see them. And God sees them.
I had been coming to the parking lot every Friday for over a month, and each night was a wonderfully eye-opening experience. But on my last night of filming, something happened that I didn't quite expect.
Homelessness is not an attractive issue politically. So the government, particularly the city, is trying to do things to move the homeless population elsewhere.
When Bobby had said this to me weeks ago and pointed out the various new signs that appeared every Friday, I never thought it would come to this. A parking lot, once bustling with so many people, was now chained and just empty. All I could think about in that moment was, what are these people going to do? So many people rely on this meal every Friday. Where would the ministry be able to serve? It turned out, all I needed to do was to go across the street.
Be thou my vision, O Lord of my heart. Not be all else to me, save that thou art. Thou my best thought, by day or by night, waking or sleeping, thy presence my light.
Car after car, bag after bag, volunteers, one right after another, all packed into this tiny, dark parking lot. It was so dark, people had to use their headlights and cell phones to light the tables. But everyone was happy. In a part of Atlanta, surrounded by people many would consider scary or dangerous, there was no fear, only joy. Everyone had smiles on their faces, and it wasn't because they saved a few extra bucks and some gadget that they probably didn't need, but because that Thanksgiving weekend, they were giving to people who were truly in need.
Thou mine inheritance, now and always. Thou and thou only, first in my heart. High King of heaven, my treasure thou art.
I walked through the crowd that night and I asked people if they would like to take a picture. As I looked through the footage afterwards, I realized you couldn't tell who was homeless. Because the truth is, people will always just look like people, no matter their race, religion, or wealth. We just have to open our eyes and see them.
Heart of my own heart, whatever befall, still be my vision.